So today I'm answering a subscriber question who asked me, what was the best practice for notifying their employer of their intent to retire? But first, let me just say congratulations to that subscriber. Retirement is awesome, and I want to congratulate anybody that's going to retire in 2025. This will be some good information to get you started, as well as if you are thinking about voluntarily terminating your employment. Maybe it's because you hit it good on YouTube, and you're ready to give up that 9 to 5. Got some good information here for you to talk about how you would notify your employer. Stay to the end, and we're going to talk about 401. If you have that with your company, how you get access to that, what you can do with that. But before I go any further, if this is the first time you're seeing me, my name is Chandler, and I just want to welcome you to my channel, right? Chandler's Retirement Life, where we talk everything about retirement. But let's get right into the question, right? Or how do you notify your employer of your intent to retire or terminate, right? Either or. So anytime, and this is coming from someone that has a master's degree in human resource management, as well as 20 years working as an HR manager, HR director for various companies. All right, that's where my experience comes from. Um, but the first thing I always tell people to do is, get a copy of your current employee handbook. That's going to spell out a lot of the policies that you want to read, that you're going to have to adhere to uh, in order to retire or even to terminate your employment. All right. It talks about what your responsibilities are and then how much time you're required to give them in advance of your termination. Um, Now, uh, if you work for a larger organization, they might require more time. If you work for the federal government or even the state government, they got a lot of regulations um, that require you to do so many other things than a private company. So if you work for federal or state, you know what? This probably won't apply to you at all. I just say go back to your employee handbook as well, because it's going to really spell it out. But for the others that work for other organizations, find that employee handbook. You might work for an organization that even doesn't even have an employee handbook, and we're going to talk about that as well. Uh, but how much advance notice do you need? Normally, right, if you're just terminating, they always ask, or we have always asked for, give us 2 week notice, right? Just enough time so that I can find a replacement for you before you leave. Now, if you're retiring, normally it's anywhere from 30 days to 1 year, just depending on where you're at, right? If you're a vice president, you're gonna need a little bit more time to find your replacement. And we try to get somebody in there so that there's a little changeover, right? Somebody that can come in there and spend a couple of weeks with you before you leave, so that they continue on with whatever job that they're doing and not miss a beat. And so your employee handbook is going to spell that out. And normally it's 2 weeks. Now, how do you do that? How do you give that notice? Well, I always say you begin by giving it in person, right? You want to go seek your supervisor, arrange for a meeting, however your company does that, right? Schedule a meeting, you come in there and you tell them about your reason for retiring. Not your reason for retiring, but that you are going to retire and what you plan. So if you're going to give 30 days out, you want to have a written document that says effective on this date. I'm giving you my 30-day notice by intent to retire, right? So on this day, 1 January, 2026, I plan to retire, right? Something as simple as that. And you provide them with that written notice, and you have that conversation, and that gets the ball started, right? So now it's in person, and you have the written notice, and you give that out. The other things that I would tell you that you need to look at before you even have these conversations is to know how all this affects your benefits. All right. Uh, if you're terminating, it's your last paycheck, right? So when do you get your last paycheck, and what does that include? Know that it's going to spell that out in your employee handbook. Normally, what it says is that if you get paid every other week, then you'll get one more pay from the date you terminate, right? Your effective date. Uh, and that normal payday is going to include everything that they owe you. Oh, what else can they owe you? Well, we're going to talk about the other things that they might owe you, or the other things that they might deduct from your last paycheck. All right, so hang in there. Other things to consider is your medical benefits. Right, know when your medical benefits end. Normally, medical benefits end the last day of the month. All right. So your last paycheck is going to include, they're going to take out your medical benefits, right? So if your benefits end or are at the end of the month, um, then you want to make sure that you know that, so that if you have anything that is ongoing, that any procedure that's upcoming, you can plan that out appropriately. So you don't want to miss those things. You don't want to go somewhere and then they tell you that I'm sorry, your benefits are not active no more, right? So you want to make sure that you understand when that happens. And not only that, but if you have a desire to continue with those benefits, right? There's something called Cobra, and that'll be available to you. Now, they'll always tell you that Cobra is more expensive simply because, for medical benefits, there's always, not always, but what we try to do every year when we're redoing our medical benefits is make sure that there's a 80 to 20% split, right? 80-20 split. That means that the company pays 80% of the cost and you pay 20% of the cost. Now, when you go on Cobra, normally you pay 100% of the cost, right? Unless that's negotiated uh, in your termination, right? I don't know, the company might have a desire, or within your policies, it might say that if you retire and you have worked 20 years for the organization, that the company will pay 2 months, 3 months of your Cobra, right? Or extend your benefits, something like that. That's why I always say you want to read your employee handbook, because everything is going to be in there, all right? So that's your benefits, and if you want to continue, that's Cobra, all right? And you'll receive letters once you do terminate, um, and it's followed up. Followed up. Other things you want to consider, that is your vacation time, right? So in that last check, it should include all your vacation that you earned but you didn't use, right? Vacation that you earned and that you didn't use. It's yours, and so they have to pay you for it. Now, if you're concerned, if you work for one of those organizations where you say, hey, my friend who retired, or my friend who terminated, they didn't pay out his vacation benefits, right? There's a concern there. I have a concern. And I'd say, you know what? Take the vacation before you give your notice, right? Make sure that you use up all them days. And that includes sick leave or sick pay if your organization has that. Now, usually that's a use or lose, meaning you use those days, or when you do terminate or retire, those go away. So before you provide them with that notice of retirement or that notice of termination, um, you know, take a sick day here, take a sick day there, especially if you have a whole week. Take a whole week before you give your notice, because you earned those. Those belong to you. Um, so do that so that you get exactly what's coming to you. Let's talk about 401 now, right? We talked about that earlier. So if your company does have a 401, and you've been given paying into that your whole time at the organization, congratulations. That's the best way to invest, some money for your retirement, or for other reasons. But your 401, once you terminate and you're terminated in the system, the organization that manages your 401 they'll get noticed. And once they receive notice, then you can do certain things with that 401k, right? Now you're able to roll it over. And what most people do, if they don't want to keep it in that organization that is currently managing it, what they do is they'll roll it over to an IRA that they manage themselves, either or, right? Again, your employee handbook would spell that out. But a lot of times, people when they do terminate and they go, uh, they don't get all the information that they need, and so they end up trying to call back to HR and say, "Hey, I'm trying to get my 401, but I don't have the phone number, I don't have the address, I don't know who to call. Uh, can you help provide me that?" You're a terminated employee, so a lot of times uh, you're not put on the high priority list, right? You're when I get to it. So I'd say get all that information before you leave. Have all that so that once you're terminated, you can start tracking that, and you'll know when that 401 money is going to become available for you to either roll it over to an IRA or keep it right where it's at, or maybe you're going to do something else with it. Let's talk about insurance. So nowadays, there's a lot of insurance that will go with you. And I talk about life insurance, right? There are some life insurance policies that will go with you. Again, there's always a split. There's always a cost that the company pays, and then if you're going to take it with you, um, you're going to be responsible for 100% of the cost. Don't know what that dollar amount is, but it might make sense. So it's something to look into. All those insurances that you had, that you believe you might need in retirement, and or you might need as you terminate. But if you terminate, usually you're going to another job, and so you'll be offered those insurances again. So it's not a great concern, but sometimes you like to get into a life insurance policy where you know what, it's the same one, and you just keep paying into it, and you don't have to worry about it. But if you're retiring, you're not going to have access to other ones unless you're going to go on to the marketplace and find something um, other than Social Security if you qualify for Social Security. We're going to talk about Social Security coming up here in a couple. So you want to make sure that you dive into your insurances to see if that's something that you want. Remember, you want to do all these things before you provide that notice, because sometimes some of the companies, when you provide notice and you say, "I'm going to retire in 30 days," they might say, "Well, you know what, Mr. Chandler, we appreciate your service to the company, but we're going to have to let you go now that we know that you're going to leave." And it might be because it's one of those organizations that have a lot of proprietary um, data that they can't let anybody access, that they have a concern of maybe losing it, or maybe it getting shared with other people. Um, and so sometimes that happens, right? I know a lot of times that will happen if you're just terminating and you say, "Well, here's my 2 week notice." And they go, "Well, okay, thank you for your 2 week notice. But you can pack your stuff up and leave right now." All right. So you always want to make sure that you're prepared for that. So if they say, "You know what, we don't need you," and you're like, "Okay, thank you," right? And you leave, and you notify that next employer, and you say, "Hey, guess what? They let me go, and so I'm available to start even sooner." And a lot of times, when somebody, as the HR, when somebody would call me and tell me that, I'd say, "Hey, that's great. Let's move up your orientation, right?" Because normally we've had orientations almost every week or every other week, so we can always make adjustments when somebody is ready to come in or start work sooner than later. So that's with life insurance, right? Let me talk about one other thing, and that is, as we're talking about some companies saying that they're going to let you go right away, and that is, you know what? Never burn a bridge, right? You never want to burn a bridge. That is, uh, that's why I say, read the employee handbook, because it specifies what your responsibilities are, and you want to make sure that you adhere to those responsibilities, because you don't want any of that to come back on you. And by that I mean, if you haven't found that other job, or you're retiring, and you're retiring with maybe bad blood, and so you don't leave on good terms, and at some point you decide to find another job and go somewhere else. They're gonna call your last employer, whether you think so or not. They're gonna do an employee verification, and a lot of times they'll call, right. The smart ones will call, and I'll get that conversation where hey, yeah, I'm just trying to get employee verification for so and so. I go, yeah, sure. Let me pull it up, right. Yep, they worked here from this date to that date. They go, oh, that's great. Can you tell me a little about him? Hey, was he a good employee? Well, if they didn't give me a 2 week notice, or if they didn't give me a 30-day retirement notice, if that was the policy, and I made that person non-rehireable, then I would just say, well, that person is not rehireable, right? And I leave it at that. Um, or if they created uh, some issues before they left, right? Sometimes they'll get a hold of an HR generalist who will say, they didn't leave on good terms. They just couldn't get along with their boss. They're hard headed, or they'll say things like that they shouldn't say, but a lot of times they do say. All right, so I always say, don't burn a bridge. All right, if you're going to term voluntary terminate your employment, or you're getting ready to retire, do it the right way, right? Read the handbook and abide by the general policies that are in there to make sure that your retirement goes smooth. Then we talk about, for those that are retiring, if you're hitting the age of 65, you're talking about Social Security now. And so the best place to find out information about Social Security is just to go right to their government website, right? socialsecurity.gov. You should already have an account with them, and even if you haven't um, reached the age of 65, or you're still in the 60s, or you're still in the 50s, or your 40s, or your 30s, guess what? Set up an account with Social Security. Why? Because they track your yearly earnings, right? From the day you first worked, and they started collecting Social Security from you. Uh, they start tracking those, and you want to make sure that dollar amount is accurate every year, because that affects the amount of money that you're going to get when you do retire and file for Social Security. So every year, every other year, I would go in and verify and make sure, yep, that dollar amount is correct. We're good to go. And then if it's not correct for whatever reason, you know what? There's a procedure to get in there and get that fixed so that number is correct. Because at the end of the day, when you do retire and you're 65, right, you want to get paid Social Security correctly. But if you haven't up to this point, right, you need to get in there, set up an account, and verify all your information to make sure that it's accurate. And then once you do that, you can sign up for and start to draw Social Security right from there. All right, that's Social Security. And then what happens? Well, if your term and voluntary termination, and you gave 2 weeks, and they adhere to it, and you're working those 2 weeks really well, or you're getting ready to retire in 30 days real well, and you come to that last day. Well, at that last day, you want to turn in everything that belongs to the company. All right, don't don't try to get away with taking some of the things that belong to them home, even if somebody said, "Oh, you can just keep that." Like, no, I don't want to keep that. Want to, whether it's your cell phone, your laptop, if they gave you a laptop, keys to maybe the building or the truck, or the shed in the back of the warehouse, whatever it is. You want to make sure that you kick that back to them. And or it might be even an ID card, right? If it's an ID card that you had to wear while you're at work, make sure all those get turned in, and make sure you get receipts for that, because at the end of the day, when you get that last paycheck and it says that they deducted X amount of dollars because you didn't turn in your cell phone, because whoever you turned it into decided they wanted to keep it, right? Well, you're terminating. You're going somewhere else. I could just keep your cell phone. They'll never know. That's what they say. So if you get charged for it, you have a document that says, "No, I turned in my cell phone." So you want to make sure that you get receipts for everything that you turned in and everything that you were issued from the company that you turned it back to them. Excuse me. And then the last thing is you want to make sure that you leave your office if you have an office, or you have a work area, or you have a place where you store. You have a locker and you store all your stuff in there. You want to make sure that that's all cleaned out, that your office is all cleaned out, that you don't leave nothing behind. I mean, anything that's related to you, you want to throw away. You want to get rid of. You don't want that next person to come in and find something that might be inappropriate or even illegal, right? You don't want to do that, because then they're just going to turn that into your safety people and or your security people, right? Or their your last supervisor or someone like that, and so that's going to taint your reputation. Then again, when they call for employment verification, they go, when he left, this is what he left, for us, which we found that was really inappropriate, and it left a bad taste in our mouth. We didn't think that was right. That's not a good thing to tell your new employer. All right, so you don't want to do that. So you make sure that your office is cleaned and everything is thrown away, right? There's nothing in there. Or if you just have a locker is clean, everything is out of there. I would even call my supervisor and say, hey, look, come over here and look at my locker, because I just cleaned it out. There's nothing in there. And I just want you to verify that there's nothing in there. And so they can do that, and you can't be held accountable if they verified it and it was so clean. And so then you're off. You're off if you're retiring, you're off to that great retirement. And there's a lot of good information, whether on my channel or any of the channels here on YouTube, talking about retirement. Or if you're one of those that are terminated, beginning a new job, congratulations, and I wish you well on your new job and or your new retirement life, right? Enjoy. And this is Chandler's Retirement Life saying, hey, it's a good life. Life out, lights out.